All right. Welcome, everybody, to our third episode of the collaboration between Q and CDE for our show. AI is in everything, everywhere, all at once. And this show is to bring information to you, all the dying questions that you have. And before we get to those questions that have been piling up over the month, I want you to know that this is an interactive show. So if you're watching this live, we have quite a few people doing that at the moment. Please feel free to ask your question in the chat, and we will get to that question also. But we do have a form right down here, qlearns.org/AIEEAAO. And that is where you can pre-ask questions for us for these shows. So before we get started, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Joe Marquez. I am Director of Academic Innovation for Q. And we have two amazing minds from CDE. Catherine, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself first.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, Catherine Goyette. People often call me Kat. And I am the Computer Science Coordinator at CDE. And excited to be here with our partners, Q. I'm a longtime Q member as well. So just want to shout that out. And I'm going to send it over to Jeff to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Kat and Joe. Yeah, so I'm Jeff. I work at the Department of Ed also. Been working here now. I actually just hit 10-year official anniversary this month, about a couple days ago. So wow, that kind of weird to think I'd be finishing my career at the department, but I am. Same thing, longtime Q. I wish I had my original Q number, but I guess there are no Q numbers, so it's I guess it's okay. But glad to be able to talk about this topic today.
In the eyes of Q, everybody's number one. So that's, there's your Q number one. So there's been a lot of great advancements in AI recently. There's a tool we introduced as a beta from Google called Google Notebook LM. It's now available to the entire public, so we want to share that towards the end. But we definitely want to jump into some of the questions, and a lot of the questions have to deal with privacy, issues of securing student data privacy, issues of what data is being collected by these tools. When can students use them? Can they use them on campus? Can they use them at home? There's a lot of different questions that we have. So we want to definitely get to those for you. So here's the first question right here. So the question is, what are you prepared to do concerning student data privacy? Now, I don't know if that's directed when it says you, meaning the CDE. CDE, what are you going to do? Or teachers in general or districts in general, what are you going to do concerning student data privacy? So what are your thoughts on this? With all these tools coming out and various age limits, most of them are now 13 years old and older with parent permission, and then 18 years and older, you don't need parent permission. What are your thoughts, Kat and Jeff, on what are we prepared to do concerning student data privacy?
Somebody asked us this question in the hallway at Q last spring, right, Kat? Right? Yeah. But we have an answer now, and you had a webinar recently about it, so I'm going to let you answer this.
So it's a challenge because we see all these amazing tools out there that weren't made for education. And we want to use them, and we want to use them with our students. And the challenge is there are privacy laws for a reason. And as educators, and I'll be honest myself, before I started to learn a little bit more about the risks and things, I also didn't understand, like, I just want to use this cool stuff with my kids. So the answer as far as what am I prepared to do? Yes, we had our data privacy our data privacy webinar at CDE, which is on the Q YouTube channel, which delves into a little bit more about this. What I did is I was actually invited to speak with some ed tech companies last week, I believe it was. And I told them, educators want to use these tools. You've got to get generative AI into your systems in a safe way so they can use these tools. There are some paid tools that are available that are legally compliant. There is Skillstruck, I believe it's called. Skillstruck. Is that right, Joe? Does that sound?
It sounds right. Yeah.
I think it's Skillstruck. Anyway, they have a chat GPT like bot that's safe and FERPA compliant that can be used with students, but it's paid. Similarly, there is Merlin Mind is a paid tool that has an AI kind of like a smart device for the classroom that's really amazing as well. So I guess what I'm saying is that there are some tools available. However, for the sake of equity, I would argue that we are really advocating for, and I know I've heard you say this as well, Joe, and Jeff talks about equity all the time. We would like safe ways of engaging kids in AI that are free, that are part of LMSs. The concern is we don't want to just throw all our kindergartners on ChatGPT. Like, that's not the answer. The answer is to advocate for these companies that are ed tech companies that are FERPA and COPA compliant to integrate these into their tools, which I think is going to happen very quickly. Again, it's already happened with some paid tools. So the technology is available. It's there.
Yeah, and I would say, and you're right on, Kat, with the equity issue. We don't want to see these ed tech tools say like the version everybody's using, you don't get AI. But if you pay extra, if you have a school budget that has the funds to pay extra, we'll let you utilize these tools. In my mind, that will just create a larger digital divide for the schools that have and that have not. So I am advocating, I'm sure you are as well, that these tools, the baseline, once they get the privacy, COPA, FERPA, all that in compliance, that they offer it as that baseline tool. Now, if the teacher tools on that side, they want to charge a little bit more for some teacher additions to be able to amplify their stuff, that's fine. But for students, they should all be able to have access equally when using the same type of tool. There should not be a paid tier model for students to use.
And with that too, in the meantime, until these tools come out in that free version, so to speak, I've seen educators. So we still want our students to know how to use these tools. And so educators themselves can model with their own account, if they so choose, and show students the power and the also the inaccuracies, the hallucinations that come out with these tools as well.
Well, and that's perfect. That's a great segue into the second question that we had asked to us. This is, how can we, meaning teachers, how can we use these tools in a way that protects student data privacy? And I think you just showed it by having the teachers model the use for the students, not having the students in the classroom utilizing the tools just yet, but still modeling how to use them properly and effectively, while showcasing not putting in any identifiable information. Right. But still being able to get effective results, outputs from these tools. I think that's incredibly important. And if teachers don't ask the question, right, like, how can we model this for our students? How do we protect student data privacy? They may not know how to do that. They may not have been told, don't put identifiable student information in. Don't put entire IEP information into these tools. You need to be able to ask the question at a level that'll get you the information you want, but not bring in that personal identifiable information. Now, when we're looking at these tools, Kat, you're talking about some tools that are already kind of COPA and FERPA compliant. Some of them are paid. We do have to have people aware that some of the bigger companies, also like Google, they are doing some due diligence to ensure that they're meeting some needs. So I went through the terms of service with Bard just before we got on, just to ensure that I'm speaking correctly. And they are saying that they are, at this moment, for 13 plus, that they are in compliance with regulations in the EU and in the United States. So that they are saying that their BARD adheres to relevant data privacy regulations such as the GDPR in the EU, and then also the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPA, in the United States. And so they are saying they are being compliant in that. But again, and Jeff, just like we were talking about before we started the show, it's going to be up to each district to look into this, right? Each district is going to have to decide, okay, I'm going to go into these tools. I am going to see what their terms of service are, what that compliance is, and does it meet those needs. And I do have to bring up site. We went to site. We were all there. We got to see each other, and we got to go to some amazing presentations. And I do want people to be aware, we attended a great session from the Ep03 law firm. And one of their lawyers, Gretchen Shipley, was presenting, and she basically said, in order for schools to kind of protect themselves, their recommendation is that no student under 13 should be utilizing these tools unless there is specific parent permission, right? And that would be an opt-in. Not an opt-out. And so that's what she was saying with these tools. But I could imagine how much of a nightmare that could be for a school district, right? Deciding which kids were opted in and which kids are opted out. And then the teachers having to see, like, this half of the room can use the tool because their parents opted in. This half of the room can't use it because their parents haven't opted in. That could be a logistical nightmare, right? In that. So I think the best way we can recommend is having the teachers model these tools, model acceptable ways to use them, and then talking about the ethics behind their use, and then preventing abuses of these tools. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, both of your thoughts on those statements.
I'll go in real quick, and then Kat can jump in. I think two things. Number one, when we say tools, it's, understanding that AI tools are as deep as the ocean. I mean, it's not just a GPT. It's not just ChatGPT. There are AI tools that do so much, and AI is integrated in so much. So a teacher may find something that is incredibly useful for instructional purposes, and you just have to look and see what is it actually doing, and what is it collecting. I remember talking to somebody at one point about some reading tool, and they were like, I'm like, well, are you guys protected? Like, well, what do you mean? So I was telling them about it, and they're like, we collect we don't do single sign-on, we collect, people sign up with, a teacher signs up, they put a kid's first name in it. It doesn't have to be a real name, and a grade level, and that's it. And then you get a reading score back to see how the kid's projecting. There's no real legit information. We don't have it. All we see is that Mickey Mouse is progressing at this grade level, and Jeff is Mickey Mouse, the teacher knows. So it's like, there's no privacy issues to that tool. So I think that, one is like looking at the tools. If you're saying just ChatGPT, that's a different thing than tools, which is a question here. And, we were talking about this before, this is really where teachers have to take the lead and lead with parents. It's like back to those parent tech nights that we all did back in 2009 and 10 when ed tech was blowing up. Sit down with a different AI tool or a different 5 AI tools on a Tuesday night and go through them with the parents and help them understand the benefits and the risks and all the different instructional purposes with them. Maybe it'll be successful, maybe not, but that's the best thing, because kids are going to be using them at home. They'll have them, especially if it's a tool that is available mobilely and easily, and they can just click and download it. Because it is up to the parents ultimately here. I like that part about having the parents opt in, because we don't know. We don't have that access yet. And we're not that far on in the AI, evolution of how it's going. I mean, it will eventually. I mean, I think what we say back at site, we thought, was it 2 or 3 months where we thought GPT is going to be in all your Google Classrooms and all the other ones, I think somebody put $500 down that it was 2 months out. 3 months. I don't know what it was, but it's coming, and then can you imagine, it's like, if I've been in Google Classroom since I was 2nd grade and I'm in 9th grade, and I just asked my Google Classroom for everything about something in a GPT format, how amazing is that going to be? So those two things.
So are you saying we have to create a squares box of just, and we have to, put in what date we think it's going to happen on, and the closest wins?
I'm serious. I think I'm dead serious. We need to put it up in here. Oh, no, we can't promote gambling. Dang it.
Maybe it's prospecting.
Yes, there you go.
But we know that it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. And I think we need to prepare the students and the teachers for its oncoming. And I've been saying, if we wait, it's too late. Right. And I think Kat's a push for modeling, I think, is absolutely needed. And Jeff, I love that you talked about parents, because if you do have this opt-in model at your school and a parent doesn't opt in, why? The question would be why? Did you what information did you send out to them? What parent nights have you done? What informational nights have you done? That is a very fair point, and I think anybody listening needs to have that. Involve the parents, involve the community in these discussions, because we have no idea what information they have. We've answered some pretty good questions. Here's another one, and I want to hear from your from the government perspective, the CDE perspective. What is it? What do companies have to do to be able to say, oh, we're COPA and FERPA compliant? Like right now, any tool, it doesn't have to be AI, just any tools. What do they have to prove for them to say that we are COPA and FERPA compliant? And is there any difference? Is there like a bigger hurdle that AI companies are going to have to prove in order to say that they are COPA and FERPA compliant?
Jeff, did you want to tackle that one?
I think back to, is it going to be bigger hurdles? I don't think so. I mean, this is just me thinking here. It's like if you're COPA FERPA compliant and you were Nearpod, it's the same thing for these AI tools. I think the thing with it is these guys are out on the bleeding edges that they don't even stop to think of it, about what they're doing. The ChatGPT and the biggies are different, but some of these other littler, smaller AI tools that just have so much power and so much, amazing instructional value, I don't even know if they're even thinking of uses in schools. And so on one hand, they're not, but then on the other hand, a lot of them are small. And if you reached out to them, go, hey guys, could you guys get on the, I think of the site, what's their Privacy Alliance certificate or something that they get, and it's like, hey, I want to use your tool. Could you run through it? They might, maybe they have a law. That might be the other thing. They may not even have lawyers to be able to go through that. But, maybe they would be like, oh yeah, here's what it is. And here we could get on the site. Because I do know that's a value that we look to, we talk to the department a lot, is that, the site's Privacy Alliance certificate, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, that they have, that schools use.
Yeah. I would say too, there are ed tech companies that have done this for years. I mean, this is something that they are familiar. I was actually working with Skillstruck. Skillstruck gave me, I hope I have the name right, but they gave me a demo account to try out their chat for students. And I said, hey, this is great. It feels just like ChatGPT. And so I asked them, hey, I know I'm going to get this question about privacy. Can you send me all the info? And so sure enough, I got all the info, and it talked about how, according to the FERPA compliance, we can provide all the data back to, all the things that they needed to do. Like, they know, they're an ed tech company. They know about all these things. But it is important that are those making the decisions to authorize these tools in classrooms, make sure that they are compliant. I will say also, though, Mark Lowndy, hi Mark, I saw you put some comments in the chat there. Awesome, preparing some presentations for K5 and one for staff. That's great. But also, he says, everybody who has access to Google search is using AI. And that's the thing that I think is sometimes misunderstood by a lot of people, or maybe they think AI is just about chatbots, right? And there's so much more to AI that's already being used. Spell check is AI, voice typing in Google Docs. Like, there's already a lot of AI happening. It's not just chatbots. And so, that's one of the reasons I think we've got to not only, we just have to think a little bit bigger picture, right? Like, we have to realize AI is in everything, not just in ChatGPT, right? Everywhere, not just Google Bard, right? All at once. So just another thing to think about, that it's a lot bigger. And so when you hear someone say, well, we're going to require parent permission for every single AI tool, do you know what you're saying? Like, do you really know what you're saying there? So just something to think about, that there's a lot of, when you use the term AI, be careful about understanding what that actually means.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair assessment. I'm thinking to myself, probably the best AI tools are the ones you don't even know are AI and you're using every single day, right?
Yeah.
Hidden in plain sight. I want to show this really quick and get your thoughts on it, right? Because again, people are just worried about student data leaking out into a tool's large language model, into that data set. They want to they want to feel secure that there's like a walled garden or a district bubble that will not allow any information to permeate that district bubble. And so this is I'm a very visual learner, and so I made this quick little graphic, and I want to see your thoughts. So here is the idea that you have the large language model, where the entire data set of the company you're using, that's where all the data that it's been trained on exists. And then you have districts that maybe purchase a license to utilize this chatbot or this large language model. But you see the district, it has a solid line circle. That means that the data cannot permeate outwards from the district. That, to me, that'll let districts feel protected, that their student data privacy and information from their SISs or their LMSs are not leaking out, but still use the power of the trained data within their district. And then you can also see that there could be some site data that can go into the district to be used by other sites, but also stays within the site, and then classroom data, right? And so they want to be able to feel that that wall can't be breached, but they can still get the full power of the chatbot experience or whatever the AI tool is being used. So I want to ask you all, like, is that like the ultimate goal of these companies, is to create security where the districts will be able to, almost like, remember back in the day, IoT, Internet of Things. In this case, it's going to be the apps of things. All the different apps the schools utilize, all that data gets aggregated into the bubble, and then it can be then utilized within the AI, but it can't leak out into the larger data set for other people to use. Do you think that's what districts are looking for in security, or you think maybe the community would feel much safer if that was in place?
I think what you're describing is what Google Classroom is. I mean, it's like, really, think about it. Your Google Classroom is in your classroom. It's at your school. It goes up to the district. It doesn't go out to Google because that's the agreement you have. Yet all the power and information of Google comes in and I have access to. I mean, you were describing Google there, but putting AI on top of it. That's awesome.
I'm glad you saw that little that little sneaky way. But yes, absolutely.
Or it could, I mean, it could be any LMS, really, when it's all said and done. And I think that's what's going to make teachers comfortable with it when those things are available. So, yeah, I had no idea if that's Google, but I'm just like, that's what Google Classroom and all these LMSs are. I mean, that's the amazing part of it.
Yeah, and I think the visual, people just need to see that visual, right? Because they think it's a two-way street. Like, if I'm using ChatGPT or Google Bard, is my information being leaked in? Is students' information going to do that same thing? And they want to feel secure. But again, knowing that's what the tools have been doing forever, is that's what they have signed on to say, we're not letting any of your data outside of your district. That's what we promise. It's just a different name. We're using, instead of the tool, we're using AI to prove a point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think we've done a good job. I think we've answered all the questions. And here's the final one, and we've kind of answered it, but they want like a yes or no answer. I don't think we can give a yes or no answer, but we can give a final answer. So as of right now, can students use AI tools at school? Yes or no? And I know Jeff has, well, you can't just say tools because it's everywhere, right? So I'm assuming, I'm just making an assumption, the individual who put this in is talking about like the main ones, like ChatGPT, Google Bard, or Anthropic's Claude. Can those be used in schools with students?
So I would argue that as a teacher, it would not be, I would not feel comfortable standing in front of even a high school class and saying, okay, everyone, I want you all to log on to ChatGPT And I want you all to do this assignment, and I want you all to put in this information. I would feel that that is not an ethical use of me as an educator, and I know that that particular AI tool is not FERPA and COPA compliant. However, similar to the fact that, you know, when I know that those kids could go home and use those tools. That's fine. They may be at school and going on their phone and utilizing those tools. I know that's happening. And so because of that, I'm not going to tell them not to use something on their personal device that is owned by their parents, right? Like I'm not going to address that, but I am going to say, hey, you know what? I did this thing on ChatGPT. Look what came up. Can you believe that? It was close, but was it factual? What was the problem here? Or what is the bias? And so I think that it reminds me of when social media, I mean, it's still big, but when Snapchat was first coming out, and everyone's concerned about Snapchat, rightly so, right? There's lots of concerns about student privacy and Snapchat. As an educator, I'm not going to tell kids, go get a Snapchat account. However, if I give an assignment and I say, I'd like you to create a representation of your learning, and some student brings in a video that they uploaded from their Snapchat and they adequately showed representation of their learning, and they did it on a non-school device, that's going to happen, right? But I am not going to advocate and encourage the use of something that at school that I know is not FERPA and COPA compliant. So I guess that's not really a yes or no, is it? But that's the reality, right? I mean, we have to be vigilant about this. So what are your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, we can't do things in school that put our kids at risk or are against the laws of privacy that we have. I mean, that's just the way it is. At the same time, we can go back to what I was talking about earlier. We could certainly do a parent night talking about ChatGPT and how kids are using them at home, or any AI tool. We were talking about this earlier, maybe a future topic is, how AI is affecting, student behavior and bullying and stuff. That would certainly be a conversation for parent nights going forward. So, I mean, it's like using AI tools at school. It's like saying, like you said earlier, telling a kid not to use Google at school, Yeah, we can block it. And yeah, we did get to block stuff a lot of time, but it's like now it's everywhere all at once. And so, we can't, like Kat says, say everybody log into ChatGPT, because especially when ChatGPT says this is not for use of kids under 18. We can't break the law. That's a for sure. So it's a yes and a no, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that is, that's the quandary we have with this is in the past, right? Sometimes the thing is like, I'm going to break the rules and then beg for forgiveness later. I think right now, I would just reiterate what we learned at SITE from AI and legalities in education. And that is from, again, Greta Shipley saying, these tools are not built for education. Yeah. And we have to abide by the age recommendations on them. And their recommendation is that if you want to use these tools in a district, parents need to physically opt in. You cannot use an opt out. But acknowledge students are using these tools at home. They are using these tools on their personal devices. And we have to acknowledge that in class and begin the training process now. Because if we wait for these tools to be available across the board, it's going to be too late, because they've already learned how to use them left to their own devices, figuratively and literally. So we have to do our due diligence to acknowledge their existence and ensure they're using them properly at home, because we know they are. So we just need to make sure that we're doing that. And plus, like right now, again, we really have to be cognizant of that digital divide. right? So even when these tools do become COPA and FERPA compliant, we have to be cognizant that there will probably be some schools that say we're still not going to allow it. And now you're going to have the have and the have-nots. The kids that have access to internet at home, access to devices at home, are still going to learn how to use these tools. The kids that don't have access, are going to be left behind from using these tools. And that is not a situation we want our kids in. So having those conversations now with your school community, with your stakeholders, with your parents, with the students, with the administrators, site administrators, district, have the talks now. So you are prepared for when these tools lift up the curtain and say, hey, guess what? We're ready. Let's rock and roll, so that you're ready to rock and roll. Also, I know we have a hard stop. We have lots of stuff going on today, but I want to thank you, Kat, for all the amazing information and all the amazing work you're doing across the state of California. And Jeff, I want to say thank you so much for everything you've been doing. I know you've been talking about AI for years, Jeff, and you saw this coming, and now it's here. And just all the support you've not only given Q, but the state of California in your 10 years of service for the CDE and your service in education before that as well. So I want to thank everybody. And again, join us. Again, we're every second Tuesday of the month. So we'll be posting that. And again, the question form is down at the bottom. If you have any other questions you're looking for us to answer during these episodes, qlearns.org/AIEEAAO, and we will do our best to answer them on air. So until next time, we hope you have a fantastic winter break, because that will be here very shortly.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks to
everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
everybody.
Thanks, Kat.